welcome to The Connection Code, a podcast where we explore the relationships that make your life and work just a little bit better.
I'm Rachel Gillman Rischall. I lead a PR firm called 3PR, focused on better for you food brands. But what I'm really obsessed with is the power of connection, especially in the professional realm.
And I'm Jeana Anderson Cohen, and I've spent more than 13 years on a business that builds friendships for adults through fitness. I'm pretty obsessed with friends. And we start every episode with one big question. Rachel, I know you had a big question this week. What is it?
So, full disclosure, you and I also had breakfast today, and I love that we're getting a 2-a-day.
Really, really love that for us.
But this question was actually prompted from our breakfast discussion with the wonderful Dawn Jackson Blattner, where we dived in and really talked about big substantive topics. And it made me think...
Straight to deep talk. Straight to deep talk.
It was like, how are you? And yes.
How are your relationships?
Which I love.
Yeah.
I would really rather on a Monday morning just go to the heart of the matter.
Same.
So what I was thinking about afterwards was, what does a generous connection look like? Because there's connection and then there's connection. Mm-hmm. And what came to me is it's the difference between giving somebody directions and offering them a ride.
I love.
So if you don't mind, I can even go further into how I envision this.
Please do.
Okay, so generous connection, 2 facets, information and contacts. So let's use contacts as an example. Mm-hmm. You could be job hunting and I could say, Jeana, you know who you should talk to? And I could point you to somebody on LinkedIn or tell you to look somebody up online. And what I've done is give you a contact, but I've left all the legwork for you. Mm-hmm. If I'm really being a generous connector, I would say, Jeana, I know exactly who you should talk to. In fact, I'm going to reach out to them. I'm going to see if they're game for a discussion with you. I will make a warm intro, and then you can step in from there. Mm-hmm. And that's giving you a ride. That is me being as generous as I can be with a connection in terms of a contact. When it comes to information, there's also a 2-layered approach. Surface level is, a lot of times people will say, I'm thinking of starting my own PR firm. How do you set up your billing? Are you hourly? Are you retainer? And this could be any number of questions when someone's picking someone's brain. Mm-hmm. And I could say something kind of generic, which is, in my business, I found that a retainer model is better and it's been the right fit for me long term. Mm-hmm. But if I really want to be a generous connector and provide real information, I would go into numbers and specifics. And it's going to depend on the person if I'm sharing literally the amount that I charge my clients. But if I'm willing to say, here's how I structure my model, here's how I invoice, here's the timing of my invoicing, here's what I figured out by making a couple mistakes, and here's how I would do it differently if given the chance to start again. That's real, substantive, helpful information. And that's a level of generosity that truly helps that connection in a way that just kind of offering generic, anybody could give advice would do. Mm-hmm. So as we talk about the power of connection, I feel like it's worth acknowledging that there's multiple levels, and being a generous connector would be the preferred one.
So do you think everyone in your world, because there are a lot of people who are like, Rachel Rischall, please connect me to your friends. Do you think everyone in your world deserves a ride? Or how do you discern between like who gets directions and who gets a ride?
I love that question. I probably could be more discerning. And I feel like I give a lot of rides and then I get frustrated when I don't get a thank you note for that ride. But sometimes it's a gut feeling. Mm-hmm. I feel personally that I really try to show up for college students because I remember so clearly how little I knew and how much help I needed. And they still can recall the people who jumped in and were kind enough to do an informational interview or a phoner when I was just worthless. A phoner. Oh, did you do a phoner? Did you do an informational interview? I mean, I didn't even know the terminology. Yeah. I think it was like, to whom it may concern kind of cover letters. And
Please
I also...
help me.
I still have flashbacks to, I told you, I had this phone conversation with what seemed like such an adult, although I'm sure she was in her mid-20s at an ad agency.
Very old.
And she wanted to do tracked changes in a resume for me. And I froze. I'm like, what are tracked changes?
For why?
Yes, what do you mean?
Yeah.
It was just mind-blowing.
Yep.
So I have a lot of affinity for college students, and I always want to get to yes, and I try to be more of a ride giver. Mm-hmm. And then for people who've lost a job or are going through a tough transition, I have been in a tough boat. I understand when you're in those moments, how emotionally unstable you can feel and how much it means when someone shows up and says, not I'm going to do a little, but I'm actually willing to do a lot. Mm-hmm. And so those are the instances that I feel more personally drawn to it. But for people who are just, I think, in general networking mode or trying to expand their circle, you need to, as I should be, maybe apply a bit more of a filter of how much you need to do as the connector. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think and how do you handle this?
So I think, just like you, I have a lot of people in the universe I've created, like through a sweat life, and I try to always say yes to like the Sweat Life community, to all of our brand partners, and yes can be different. I last week had coffee with someone who was like, hey, this was my favorite email I've ever gotten from an ambassador.
Really?
Yeah. Well, so every year with ambassadors, we do a goal setting session. We've done it forever. Will Haley was the original guide for these goal setting sessions, and now like we've taken them over, but really using his guidance. Anyway, we use like this BHAG structure, big, hairy, audacious goals.
Oh, I like that.
It's very similar to how we met in this sort of manifesting, thinking 10 years out framework.
And can I just say, building on that for a second, nobody loves small goals. No. Nobody gets excited about really attainable, logical next steps. Yeah. It should be like a holy shit moonshot goal.
Yeah.
And then you feel yourself rally for it.
I'm a little bit scared of it.
Yes.
50-50 shot.
Kind of like this podcast.
Exactly. Well, I knew we'd do it.
It wouldn't have happened without you.
Yeah. I knew we'd do it. So this ambassador reached out to me and she was like, hey, crazy, but I achieved a goal much faster than I thought I would. Oh. So she got into this goal much faster than she thought she would, and she wasn't emotionally prepared. Like she didn't have like the structures, the community, the things in place she needed to sort of get ready to take over at this gym where she was working. And so she was like, can we just sit down and talk about, oh no, what do I do? And so that was like, the answer was yes. So we sat down, I just listened to her concerns, and then we worked through it together. Because it was less like she needed me. It was more that she needed someone to talk about it with. And then I could help her like sift through her goals with her, sift through what she needed to do next. So that was like an information. She needed information. She needed someone to like hold her hand while she was going through this. So I always say yes to ambassadors, and I always say yes to a Sweat Life's partners, which are, well, like you. Like we've worked together in some ways through like Farmer's Fridge and Tavala, and I mean anyone else, all of them. And so anytime someone from those brands that we've had so much like generosity from comes to me and says like, can you introduce me to X, or we have someone looking for Y role, I will post it immediately to the community. I'll put it in our email newsletter that goes to thousands and thousands of people, because I want to help. Yes. So I sort of look at it as like, I want to be reciprocal in my relationships, but I also never want to keep score.
Which I think is huge. Yeah. I don't think it's being a generous connector if you are mentally tallying whose turn it is to do something.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I think if somebody's been really generous to you, you inherently feel like you want to show up in a similar way for them. Right. If somebody gave me a great intro, really helpful advice, held my hand through something, just... Of course, when the time comes, I want to show that same courtesy back. There are people who I don't think always proceed that way, but the best is when it just goes back and forth without a sense of anyone owes something. It just feels really magical to continually help. Yeah.
And I also think that probably both you and I have the same feelings about just like people, places, and things we really, really like. We are openly connecting them to other resources. For example, like East End, for no reason. Like it's this new like sauna and cold plunge
Oh,
spot.
you did start to tell me about this.
Yeah,
Yes.
which I'm obsessed with. Like, if you've talked to me in the past month, I've talked about it because I love it. And I love the owner. I just think she's great. So any chance I get to introduce her to someone else in the industry, in like the wellness space, I do. She doesn't need me for it. Like, she never asked me to do it. It's just something I want to do because I love this space and want it to succeed. I'm sure you can think of a place like that too.
Yes. Dear Margaret. If I love a restaurant, you're right. Anything that you genuinely spark to, you want to share it with people, whether it's a book or a podcast. Did I ever tell you my Hotel California view on relationships?
Tell me. You have, but I want to hear it again.
So, in the spirit of generous connections, I was realizing that if I like somebody or I feel a kinship with them or we have history, there's some special way they occupy a place in my memory bank. They're basically in my Hotel California, meaning they never leave. Yeah. So if I like you and I feel connected to you, you always have a room and a space and you're always welcome. And I'll hold that for you indefinitely. But naive or not, I like to believe that it will go both ways. That if somebody was a former friend, or like a friend from a different life stage, or a colleague or a client, that I too can live in their hotel. So I think the best and most generous connections are where it doesn't matter if you're actively in touch, if many years have gone by, but you can still be thought of warmly and pulled into something that would benefit you because you have this layered relationship and the roots are still strong.
Yeah, I think that's really... I love your Hotel California reference because I think it leaves space. It's a very generous assumption for the other friends in your life to think like, obviously I have a room in their Hotel California and they have a room in mine, because it doesn't leave any space for those negative thoughts of like, what if there's not a room in their Hotel California?
And maybe PR has strengthened this muscle because even though I'm wildly sensitive, I am in a profession that has a lot of rejection and a lot of no's. And so I've just become accustomed to that. But I think people often fear asking for things. And they think if I ask for this intro, this favor, this particular need of mine to be met, I might encounter a no. And that feels so vulnerable and so scary that I'd rather not ask at all. And I am much more of the mindset that the worst somebody can say is no, and you'll live. It will be okay. That inherently people do want to be helpful, and it feels really good to be the provider of goodwill or a service. So why not make the ask? And then if I want that from people, I certainly have to give it.
I am trying really hard not to jump ahead to my show and tell, because what it does is it strengthens this point. Because can I give one little stat?
Yes.
Okay.
I love a stat, a research moment.
So I'll just actually give my show and tell now.
Yes.
And then you'll do whatever.
Get in front of the classroom.
Show and tell. Soapbox. So my friend Shira, who honestly we should have on the podcast eventually because she just has a lot to say. She sent me the podcast Plain English with Derek Thomson. The episode title was called The Antisocial Century. You can assume it's about loneliness. You can assume it's about social connection. And it featured Nicholas Epley. What I loved about his research is he and his team interviewed people at a train stop in Chicago, or just outside of Chicago. Yes. And they asked people to essentially rank how bad it would be or how they would feel on a scale of 1 to 10 talking to a stranger on the train. And people always ranked it as bad or scary, essentially. You'll have to listen to the episode because I'm using the wrong words, but it's essentially that they ranked that it would make them feel a lot worse than they did right now. And then they were given the task of talking to a stranger on the train with the incentive of a Starbucks gift card. People love a free coffee.
Yes.
He makes that joke on the podcast, so it is not mine. And then they asked them after they got off the train to rank how it made them feel to have that social interaction. What they found was people tend to overestimate the fear, the rejection of a situation, and underestimate how good it will make them feel. Yes. So it's true for so many things. Like we overestimate how likely it is we'll get rejected, how likely it is we'll be made to feel bad. Mm-hmm. And we forget that actually the thing we're about to do that's scary will make us feel so good.
I will say as a side note, I dated 2 different people I met on the train. So you just never know in my 20s.
I dated a guy I met on the bus, actually.
Yeah, public transportation in our 20s was not a bad place to meet people.
Yes, it did work out.
But
it didn't work out, but it did work out for the moment.
For the moment.
Yeah.
But that's funny because I often try to get on airplanes deliberately with like a good energy and a thought of like assume positive intent.
Right.
And I've met great people on airplanes or at least had positive experiences because I'm not coming on thinking, oh, the plane is full. Yes. Because I think what you put out, you get back.
Absolutely.
And so I love that they did this experiment. I guess what I'm kind of shocked by is how negative people were in anticipating just the prospect of talking to a stranger would be awful. Like, of course we're fucking lonely.
Yeah, of course we're lonely. Well, it also obviously factors into friendships in general, like the way that you and I became friends. I have been in this group of adult women who are making friends, who I literally, like, day after day am acting as the camp counselor to say, like, Rachel, Kayla, you two should meet because you have X in common. Like, I'm acting as the conduit. It has given me a sense of fearlessness when it comes to making my own friends. So if I meet someone and I connect with them, I will say, like, I'd like to be your friend. Let's get a coffee. And what time works for you. Because
I love the clear intent. Yeah. I just want to be your friend. It's almost like elementary school in the best way possible.
Yeah, the playground. Kids have it right. Kids have it right. Speaking of kids.
Yeah. Oh, should I do my show and tell?
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, Shira is often, my daughter Shira is 10. I have these twin daughters. Yes. And a lot of unexpected wisdom, I think, comes from 5th graders.
They're both old souls, but like different types of old souls, what I've gathered from them.
Yes. Also, I feel like, did I tell you the story about Shira's tips for making friends at camp?
No, tell me.
Okay. So this actually applies too. So Kayla and Shira were going to a summer camp a few years ago, and they didn't know anybody. And Kayla was a little reticent to go up to new kids.
I could get it.
And Shira goes, it's easy, Kayla. You find somebody. You say, I like your shirt. Do you want to get a snack? Then you're friends.
It's literally what I do.
But like a compliment and a plan.
A compliment and plan, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. I like this thing about you. Let's go do something.
Yeah.
So she really nailed it. So my show and tell is that Shira has a babysitter club. They don't do a ton of actual babysitting, but the thought is there and they gather. And even though Shira has never read our goddess Priya Parker or the Art of Gathering book, she hosted last Thursday 9 girls and handed each of them a printed sheet, which I'm going to read off of, and it's titled Norms for Babysitting Club.
Did she choose norms because she didn't want to say rules?
I think norms is classroom vernacular.
Oh, okay. I love it.
Because I don't say norms, but it does feel better than rules.
It does feel better than rules because it's not restrictive. It's sort of like, this is what we do here. Okay.
Yeah, this is our babysitter club vibe.
Yeah.
Please adhere.
Yeah. Vibes are on.
So, number 1, respect each other's ideas. 2, try your best to get along with others. 3, be kind. 4, be creative. 5, no mean comments. 6, all caps, have fun. Yes. Not only are these norms amazing for a babysitter's club of 5th graders, I think they'd be great on social media.
Yeah. Yes.
I think they're like a guideline for living.
Yeah.
I think this is a template for connection, having respect, trying to create like a cohesive environment where people can get along, the kindness and creativity, removing the mean commentary, which often just kills a relationship off the bat, and then enjoyment, just having the joy piece.
So I think what Adam Grant recently posted a piece of research. It wasn't his research, but he was reposting it. And it was essentially like the size of a group in which people get along best. And so I think what Shira is also like scratching the surface of is the best size group, the group without any drama, is 3. If you
really, wait, my jaw's dropping. I know 3 is the ideal number. 3 sometimes feels problematic in my mind.
Yeah,
really,
2 to 3 friends is like the ideal number for like we really gel, we really get along. The larger the group, you know, in high school, middle school, you hang out in these big groups. Yes. It's when you're like when your hormones are raging and you want to date people, or even you're just trying to make friends and have plans and everyone's invited. You end up in these larger groups, and that's when you see drama. And the drama, I think, is because they don't have these rules. Because the thing is, like, you're not going to love everything about everybody.
Yes.
But you can be a good person, even if you don't love everything about everybody. So I love her norms.
I do too. I was really happy to see that she put that in place, and I apparently was well received. I had to miss the Babysitters Club. But I think there's something to establishing a way that you want people to operate. And again, this is going to go back to Priya Parker maybe every single time.
Probably.
But if you set an intention...
This is a podcast about Priya Parker.
We're really just gunning for a conversation with her. But if you're hosting anything, whether it's like a dinner party or a breakfast or a baby shower, I don't know, just setting some intentions and just helping people show up as their best self and in the kindest, most warm and generous way possible feels like such a win.
Well, also, like, it takes a lot of the stress off of people by saying, like, this is what we're doing here, this is what we're not doing here. Because then adults don't have to think, like, where do I sit? Who do I talk to? What are we talking about? Can I be mean? Are we being snarky here? No, we're not being snarky here.
Actually, yes. I think it's rules of the road and that everybody drives more safely.
Yeah.
And it's more productive.
Right. And if someone habitually breaks the rules, you stop inviting them.
Yes. I'm actually watching 5th grade text chains go a little crazy on the iPad. And I think it's because a lot of norms are not adopted yet. And so they don't know, don't say that. Or other people are reading this. So the space between communication and behavioral norms has a lot of room for growth.
Yeah.
In actually most people's lives.
Yep, absolutely. Don't say the thing you think immediately. Take a pause.
Yes, take a pause. Yes.
Take a pause.
Okay, so speaking of generous connectors, I would like to spotlight Danielle Robay. She and I have been friends, we're connected. It's been 5+ years. Our mutual connection put us in touch, and whenever anybody I really like and respect says, you need to meet this person, and feels really firm about that intro taking place, I always want to see it through. So Jenny Patinkin said, you have to meet Danielle Robay, and I immediately loved Danielle and was like, you. So anyways, Danielle has not one, but 2 amazing podcasts, Pretty Smart and The Bright Side.
And they're on Reese Witherspoon's network.
One's on Hello Sunshine. Danielle is like a goddess of conversation. She's such an inherently good listener. But what she did that I think was so brilliant is she knows that not everybody is comfortable asking deep questions. And yet deep questions are the portal to connection. And I think that the caliber of the questions you ask determines the quality of your conversation.
Absolutely.
So she wanted people to have a toolkit. And she made a deck of 52 cards called Question Everything so that people could pull from the deck and jump into deeper waters without having to feel the pressure of coming up with what is that ask. So maybe we can pull cards and ask each other questions.
You know I love to pull a card.
Okay. Oh, you tarot queen. Okay. So if I put these out and then you pick the one.
Do you want me to pick?
Yeah.
I feel like this one is
okay. So, okay.
Oh, she's a long one.
Oh, this is a good question.
Is it juicy?
Okay, it's juicy. This is, okay. So the question says, in the past, people were buried with items they would need in the afterlife.
Oh my God.
What would you want buried with you in the afterlife?
Can I take a living being, do you think?
You know what? For the purpose of this question, I'm going to say yes.
Well, okay, so magical thinking. So I feel like I would love to take my dogs, my husband. How many items can we take? Let's say up to 5. Do you feel good about that?
We're really loosening this.
Yeah.
Yes, 5 things.
Okay, so I would love to take my dogs and my husband because they enrich my life. My husband is a true partner in all of the ways that keep me alive and hopefully vice versa.
Yes.
We keep each other alive and happy and calm. And then the dogs I just love deeply.
Yes.
But last but not least would be a good pair of like athletic shoes. I think I would like to continue working out in the afterlife.
Sure. Fitness first.
Yeah, of course. I just want to feel strong and like I can, like take down a zombie.
Yes.
If I had to. Because if, it's the afterlife, you just never know about zombies.
I just like picturing this like mausoleum with like Justin dogs, tennis shoes.
Period.
Yeah, this feels like
Zombie defense.
Yes. Okay. Passing these to you.
Okay, you pick. Oh, I like that you get a different question.
Okay, so I'm gonna. Okay, so you ask me this one.
Do plants thrive or die in your care?
This does not bode well for my character.
No, that's not true.
I have some lightly suffering plants downstairs. Mm-hmm. They're there. Mm-hmm. They're just not thriving.
Do you talk to them?
No.
I would really recommend you name the plants and talk to the plants.
Okay. Because my kids are alive and maybe thriving. Yeah, but the plants are not. The plants are not as much.
Your kids are doing great. So if you feel like naming the plants and talking to them, it does.
Really?
Science has shown. I'm telling you, this is not pseudoscience. This has been replicated. Study after study have shown that when you give plants love and attention through kind words, they thrive.
This feels like an analogy that really wraps up our whole conversation. If I'm generously connecting with my plants, they're going to do better.
Because they're also living beings.
Yes, because everybody wants attention and care and to feel like a priority. So maybe this is a gentle nudge.
Gentle nudge to love your plants like you love your people. What do you think? Should we wrap it up?
I think that's a perfect endpoint.
Well, this has been another episode of The Connection Code, a podcast about friends, connections, and work, and really everything in between. This is a production by Two Connections, Rachel Gillman Rischall and Jeana Anderson Cohen. You can follow us on Instagram. We both use both our last names, at Rachel Gillman Rischall and at Jeana Anderson Cohen, and on LinkedIn for the professional shorties by looking for our names. We both rock two last names, so we've got that going for us and our friendship. And hey, if you want to drop a line, share us a number of your dream connection. Tell us who you want to connect with. We'd love to make it happen. Bye.
Bye.